You didn't have anybody else. You was-
I believe we have Drew who's going to participate remotely.
Yeah.
Neither have I.
Heck of all the parking. I moved the parker.
Wrestling started to.
I just thought this was gonna be a really popular meeting, didn't you?
Our ward, obviously.
I look at the parking lot. How many people are inside that room?
And John's like, do I want to go in there? Kimberly, my students updating, so I think I'll have to join it once the meeting starts, just to give you a heads to keep a lookout for that. I think I hear somebody else's audio from somebody else, hearing an echo. Hearing my voice just once is plenty.
You did, for me.
Yeah.
All right. Go ahead and call to order. Pleasantville School District. November 6, 2023. Call to order, one allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. .2 mission statement. John, would you mind reading that?
Our mission to graduate all students with high levels of academic and personal achievement, ready for post-secondary excellence, prepared for productive, compassionate citizenship through research-based instruction and a collaborative system of support.
Thank you very much. 2 changes or additions to the agenda. One, 3.0 introductions and attendance. I do not see anybody in the audience this evening. We do, however, have admin staff tonight. Caleb Solomon from the middle school, Garth Duro, principal of the high school, Whitney Conley, special ed director, Henry Stoneberg, elementary principal. Public forum. Individuals who are on site during this portion of the board meeting, members of the public are specifically invited to present items of commendation and or concerns. At the discretion of the board chair, further public participation may be allowed at the time specific agenda items are under consideration by the board. District policy BDDH. For individuals who are viewing online, The school district posts the upcoming agenda on our website, pleasanthill.k12.or.us. The Friday before regularly scheduled Monday school board meetings. This will allow for public comment prior to the board meeting. Please click on the tab provided to share your comment for the school board to consider at the upcoming meeting. Personnel matters may not be discussed in public at a school board meeting. Members of the public who have personnel concerns or commendations should share them directly with the school district superintendent, Jim Christ. 5.0 presentations recognition. 5.1 student of the month / most improved student of the month.
Yes, I was hoping Chloe would be able to make it tonight, but since she's not here, Chloe Meyer is our most improved student of the month. Ms. Bonaventure shared that Chloe is deeply creative and emotionally sensitive. In her writing class, she is always pushing the boundaries of what can be done in a story. Over the years, she has seen her really come into her own as an individual, embracing all of her quirkiness and flights of fancy. And she likes to think that she has found fertile ground in which to blossom here. So good kiddo. It's been fun to see her grow over the last couple of years. It's definitely been an adventure. Zoe Barad is our student of the month. Ms. Watney shared that Zoe is an incredible student that will always put in the extra time and effort to make sure that she understands something. She takes the initiative to seek out help, study harder, ask questions, and advocate for her rights as a student. She has a passion for learning. After all of that work, she always comes out on top academically. In addition to her academic dedication, she is kind, respectful, and fun to have in class. She includes others. She is friendly, an enthusiastic Spanish learner. And also just recently, Zoe traveled to the FFA National Convention in Indianapolis this past week with 4 other FFA students to compete. And she earned the FFA National Championship title in the Agri Science Power Structure and Technical System Division, where she earned the title of her microbial fuel cell production and energy project. So, yeah.
Congratulations, Zoe and Chloe. I have their certificates up here. Just make sure you take them before you leave tonight. I've already signed them. Disappointed they're not here, but I understand.
I knew Zoe was going to be able to make it. And unfortunately, Emily is also not here tonight. She had a last minute volleyball event that she had to attend. But I do have some notes from her if you'd like to hear those.
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things that you want to talk about is what's happening with the different clubs. Reach Club started their canned food drive at the end of last month. They're looking to start the gift drive after Thanksgiving. Honor Society is in the process of picking their projects and moving forward with those. Student Council is now working on organizing a winter dance and looking for different fundraisers. I think they were really pumped to see homecoming go so well, and the attendance actually was quite a bit higher than last year. The Student Athletic Leadership Council is preparing for winter sports and debriefing fall sports. Our Bible Club, student-led Bible Club, continues to meet and grow, so that's a brand new club that was brought on this year. World Issues Club, starting debates on issues around the world. And then kind of a recap of fall sports. Volleyball, of course, if you didn't get the chance to get out at some point this weekend, it was pretty exciting. Our volleyball program are in second place at the USA State Championships on Saturday. Shannon Green and Claire Crawford both earned all tournament team recognition. Our girls soccer beat Riverdale to make it to the second round, but beat unfortunately by Valley Catholic. Our cheerleading program was represented at the OCA All-State Meet this Saturday with Serenity Peters and Lindy Reed both competing. Both freshmen placed in the top 10 and earned all-state recognition. So we had a lot of stuff going on this weekend and a lot of things to celebrate for our kids. Pretty cool.
Congratulations to the volleyball team. That was a pretty awesome season. So I take it that that's 5.2 for us. We'll go ahead and go to 6.0, 6.1, approved consent agenda. When all your motions related to action items, other than the consent agenda, excuse me.
Move to approve the consent agendas on 101. 103.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain. I was here to see the, for the meeting, so I don't know if that's accurate or not.
Understood. Motion passes. 4 I 1 abstain. And then I'll hear motions to approve individual board policies that are listed on the agenda.
I'll move to adopt a board policy LBE.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Move to approve policy EFA.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous?
Approve board policy GCBDA /GEBDA.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes. All right, 7.0 board discussion, 7.1. Article, planning for failure. Or plan for failure or for school success.
In hopes that these articles, work is just a matter of bringing us together on a common vision and hoping to get reaction, things that stood out, maybe even questions.
I wonder, not unlike the last article, it makes sense. How, maybe I should know this, but I don't. How do you actually create these moments or opportunities for the teachers to collaborate and do what this man, and I think the previous article suggested as well?
Yeah.
Besides having teacher work days on Fridays.
The biggest are the teachers' work days on Fridays. You know,
That is the answer.
that is the biggest portion of time that we can set aside for work like this to happen. Otherwise, it is also then happening usually at the end of the school days, depending on the school structure. Where you might have a staff meeting once a month, and on alternating other days of the week, depending on if it's Tuesday or Thursday, holding grade level team meetings or content area meetings, secondary level, holding their team meetings. And then you guys are on Tuesdays and Thursdays right now. So it's during the day, correct, for your day teams. So they'll hold like a 9 a.m. full work specialists and administrative staff, but for the teachers, it's there for these days. For the other big portion goes.
And if they read this, maybe they did it, sorry. Would they say, that's exactly what we do on those days?
No,
They wouldn't say,
I would say not at this point in time.
Okay.
Not.
okay,
I'd say my experience so far around the early release days is a lot of that was around just staff planning individually. I know Deborah had some do for model and PLC's planning in her building as well. The secondary was a lot of just staff prepping and planning individually, not a lot of teamwork. So this is the start this year with the changes to the collective bargaining language around early release days and being able to and encouraging content area and develop teams to work together, developing a single professional growth goal. For starting to implant those seeds and getting them time to work together towards a common vision. Yeah. Hope would be something like this and looking at next budget cycle. We've got professional development and training and professionals to come in and actually offer, and we'll do for model actually as people will come and work on site with this and online. Going along with that and the piece with that as well as the early morning intervention software purchased for this year as well, so our data suite. We now got regular data coming in after a switch from WebSys to Synergy. And I think that was just last week where we were finally got regular data transfers going in. We've met with them once already just to go through the report functioning and how to set up those reports, because you can specialize them for what you want to see in our district. And then we've got them coming back right now, January 12th, to work with staff. So we're starting to layer those pieces in.
The second to the last paragraph, was, I went through and I was highlighting stuff and that whole paragraph pretty much got highlighted, but, the second sentence, teachers working together have the capacity right now to improve instruction. And I think that's, like, in trying to develop these data things, I think the talent is right here. I think that there's teaming that needs to be done and there's trust that needs to be built for this to happen. But I think that the talent that we need to develop something is currently on our campus.
I'm curious what, how you, no, I don't know that I like the word enforce, but how you monitor and engage that A, that this is happening, and B, that it's having the impact that you want. Because for me, and it's maybe something for a different time to really get into, but this is a pretty high level paper. There's not a lot of details, and so when they're talking about testing their lessons plan, testing the curriculum, I'm curious what that actually looks like. How are we testing that? What's that? Is it something that occurs like? Is it something that occurs over the course of a year, or is it something they're coming and looking at like every Fridays, for example?
But getting these things in place can be the course of and have them be part of your culture, the course of many years to actually get them solidified. One of the big things that we did this last year is opening up the language around the release days and having teachers actually write common growth goals. We've got work to do around with the administrative team towards evaluation. What does evaluation look like? What style of evaluations should we do? As you start to then again culturalize, open up the doors and make the teaching and learning visible. Starting to encourage teachers to be visible with one another regarding sitting down and looking at the standards and knowing what it is that they are teaching from their curriculum and how it aligns to the standards, and then going back and reflecting like in our statewide assessment data, if there's particular strands or targets within the data that we're finding that we are not meeting or we're behind the state average in, go back and reflect that in the next school year as far as building out your curriculum so you can strengthen maybe computational analysis for mathematics as an example. Just getting the teachers to sit down and having these conversations regularly. Our secondary staff again, that has not been a common practice where they sit down and review standards, go back through the data, start with the data points, look for weaknesses, and start strengthening those weaknesses. It's a cultural shift, and it can take It takes some time.
I feel like from the information I've taken in, at the secondary level, and we're at the buy-in phase, we're trying to get the staff to realize the value and come to a common belief that this is the right way to. And, but yeah, like Jim said, just the years of changing culture and past practice.
There's a lot of trust when you do this as well, because you go from teaching can be very close in the sense that you've got your 25 or 30 kids that come in your door, the door closes, you do your thing, kids leave, another group comes in, you do your thing. And there's not a whole lot of jobs like that where your teaching is not always so visible. So getting those conversations happening with one another. I tried this strategy and this was the results of my strategy. Have you had similar successes in your classroom, or what you find that's useful for this particular students coming up? Part of that's also our transition activities that we've talked about, especially moving fifth graders to sixth grade or to sixth grade, and then also eighth grade and ninth grade, and sharing data from one teacher to the next and information from one grade level to the next. So teachers, when they come in, they're not just coming in blind, but they're coming in knowing that, okay, I've got a group of students who, use like computational analysis for mathematics as an example, are performing low in that area, for whatever the reason might be, and working on developing how to strengthen those skills for students as they come through. First, you had some.
Say, when I read the title of this article, I've read this before. I looked at the date, it was 2003, and it's like, yes, I have read this before.
It's not anymore.
And I think this is either part of a breakout session at the OSBA convention many years ago. And it's possible the author was there as a speaker. But, I've thought about all the work that was done to make the improvement plan for the state ODE. And I felt that a lot of that was probably not as productive a use of time as could have been spent in, smaller group teachers, PLCs.
Yeah.
So, I supported those ideas back then, still am. Yeah, I just would like to get out of the circular talking about it and get to where it's actually applied. That seems to be a problem.
Yeah. And that's our direction. That's where we're heading towards.
Great to hear it happening, hope it works out, and so what can we do to help at this level?
This isn't to say to do away with curriculum, but I believe I talked about this with Debbie every time. I think she had a similar experience. There was a point in time, and it's at least a decade ago now, maybe longer, where we put off a math adoption, and so for basically a year, teachers were responsible for going out and grabbing information and bits and pieces of curriculum for wherever they could find it to be able to teach their content. And we had the single largest increase in test scores in a particular year. And it's really kind of demonstrated, I think, that the creativeness and the experience of teachers when they go out and they start to do that work hands-on and pull that stuff, the curriculum, and there's buy-in there and what they're doing. The results of that switch to learning versus a canned curriculum in the book where you should start in the first of the book, and by the middle of the year you should be able to halfway through the book, and by the end of the year you're last of the book. What really fostered that was, at least at the school that I was running at the time, is we had the PLC model in place. So teachers had time to work together individually, design their lessons, and they would do so. Because they hadn't practiced it, they hadn't gone through it, they didn't have a book available, they had to literally work together, week after week after week, designing content, moving forward and assessing students, finding out which students work, making adjustments along the way.
How did they do in a lot in terms of alignment?
I would say it was more heavily aligned, simply because they had to pay so much attention to the standards, they couldn't just accept through a adoption process that the work was done for them. And as long as they go through what is in the book,
So the standards control the alignment,
we should be good. Yeah, I mean,
as long as you thought the standards said it was gonna be aligned.
yes, but also understanding that not all the standards are created, not all the standards are created equal in the sense that, like they're either new or we're gonna go as deep into a particular standard, because there are some of the standards that will, in a sense, be repeated time and time again, so you just might have to go back and touch on it at a particular time of the year before another unit comes up, so that students just have a trigger of some background knowledge. Yeah.
It's like there would be a freedom there to make the teaching fit the kids instead of the kids fit the curriculum, because maybe it's not the same every year.
Yeah, and then in lies that some of the challenges as far as a building administrator and working with staff to be able to not only accept that the kids that come into your classroom can have a wide and pretty diverse starting spot as far as teaching, as far as where they're at, background information or what they may have learned previously throughout, or moving from one school to another or multiple schools during the school year. So number one, accepting that that is what their classroom looks like, and number two, then actually learning and utilizing differentiation, the ways to go reach all of them in the classroom.
So to, like to John's point and kind of what I was getting back to, even the part that we're having to do a culture shift, and that's gonna take time. I'm still curious what it looks like to ensure that there's we're moving towards that. Is it like admin sitting in on these meetings, or is there something that we're looking for to indicate to us that it's occurring in these communities?
The accountability piece.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we'll start meeting with the FIP team after the new year and start redeveloping the evaluation guide as well for teachers. And so a lot of that will be tied into the evaluation system. That can be both good and problematic at the same time. Ultimately, you get your best results when you can bring everyone together and with the understanding that this is a good practice, this is what's best for kids, this is what's best for teaching and learning, and then be able to use the evaluation model as a piece to kind of help push and guide that really. The administrative team can't always be to all of those professional centers, but if you can get folks to get together and say as a content area, grade level, write a growth goal that's common so they know, okay, here's what the growth goal is, the administrator is aware of it, now you can ensure the release days to go forward and actually start to put the plan in place. Yeah, but it goes back to making it visible. So with the before model, for example, is you've got an individual who does the agenda, you've got a timekeeper, you've got a note taker, and being creative in the ways in which they take those notes and do that work so that it does become visible, so you have evidence to be able to bring and show.
okay.
I explain it like a little bit like the work that I do with you guys. Excuse me, you're obviously not here to watch the work that I do, so if behooves me to make as much as what I do as physical students possible. And so trying to get that same thought with our staff or our specialists, that our administrators can't be in their rooms or in the meetings every single day. How can they make that learning visible, or that teaching visible for our administrative staff? And then the idea that just focuses or falls down to our students as well when we're looking at doing teaching and learning is how do you get your instruction and the way in which students demonstrate their learning visible as well. That is not just a true false pictures as the day to day score on top, that is a writing sample or a project, something more hands-on and visible.
All right, that answers my question. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think somebody, was it you, Rusty, who asked, like, what's the board's role in that? What does admin do as, like, our ability to ensure that the support this, ensure it's occurring and.
So part of that's already taken place through collective bargaining agreement. I made a couple of, and it's one of it's some of those things is they were purposeful in the sense of what I guess I knew that I needed with the collective bargaining agreements to be able to start to move some of this work forward. Now they have those things together, it makes the work that much easier moving it forward. Other pieces that you guys have done, I'll bring the budget to you, and we've approved at an EA at the secondary level, where we're doing some reading instruction, and we're working on actually learning a little bit about the science of reading right now, particularly at 6th grade. The calendar, the early release days. The early release days is an enormous investment in teaching and learning if used appropriately. So those things all tie together as far as the changing collective bargaining agreement, the release days, starting to move the team together, getting the data suite so that staff has easy data that is right at their fingertips to look at. Next piece is around professional development for staff on alignment of their standards. It could be the D4 model, and a lot of that is how quickly can we do that given the staff that we have without having to spend a lot of money and not knowing what our budget cycle looks like. Of course, the second year of a land payment should be pretty consistent, but I would expect that you may see a budget that will have supports and being able to put this work forward even further in the next time event. And that's what I'm trying to bridge some of those gaps. So keep bringing that up, and they're not always easy to draw a connect line to.
Right. Before I move on, Drew, did you have any comments or questions, thoughts?
No, I thought everything you guys just mentioned was good. I think just one thing that popped up again there halfway through is keep your overall goals small or not small, but small in number, I guess, not have too many. So be precise about what our targets are. So yeah.
Goes often better.
At least more focused.
Okay.
There you go. That's a good word.
All right. I anticipate that you have mentioned we're going to continue to have these articles to read and discuss. I think that's I find it valuable.
Yeah, continue to bring them forward. Yeah.
8.0 reports and information. 8.1 elementary report.
Hello,
Good evening, Deborah.
good evening. Well, I've got a lot of stuff for you. I apologize. I'm trying to streamline this back to one page. John, it's nice to see you, and I was kind of chuckling to myself. I thought, oh, and I'm gonna talk about OSAS data, and John loves OSAS data. So, we'll get into that shortly, but I just bring before you in section 1 of my report, a table that I've created for you, where monthly I will give you the regular attenders as we are tracking in our building. Halloween was wonderful. We had a lot of tummy bugs. And we thought it was kids who ate too much candy. It wasn't, I assure you. And then last week it was strep throat running in my building. And so, our attendance is beginning to go down like this, and parents are concerned. And I have to applaud every family for calling in every day. Our unexcused, unaccounted for is virtually 1 to 2 kids out of a building of 452, which I think is incredible. And yes, I do know that there are some that wait for Carrie Thomas to call them every day, just because they like to say good morning to Carrie, and she likes to say good morning to them, so. This number will fluctuate, and we'll watch it as the year grows, but we are having lots of conversations with families regarding attendance. We did that as part of our parent conferences. I gave the staff a sheet out of Synergy that had all the child's pertinent information, and at the very bottom was their attendance. Because the first place I want that attendance conversation to start happening with is in the classroom. And then I step in after that, our counselors present. And so we've done several interventions already, and we're working with some agencies on a couple right now. And then last Thursday, ODE, in their great infinite wisdom, welcome back, John, released the at-a-glance. And I noticed in the board packet, a copy of the elementary was not there. So I'm providing you a copy of that right now. And I want to say thank you to Caleb for putting together a handy and beautiful chart, which I very quickly caught this morning. And I told him I would really compliment it and gave him credit for it. So good job. And I just didn't go back and reproof it, so I apologize if I'm a typo. So the report card is there for your reference. And then the table basically just walks you through the 4 levels that a student can score. And I should start by saying this year the state made a little shift in thinking. And said, hey, guys, settle down on comparing students to students, because that's not an accurate thing to compare. And it's even hard to compare when a student goes from 3rd grade, 4th grade, 4th grade, 5th, and so forth. Look at this as an evaluation of your system. But how does the system do? What system changes do you need to make? You know, looking at our report card, we got a system error with regular attenders. We needed to do something to fix that. So we put a lot of effort and energy, and we will continue into that. We knew going into state assessments when they came back that the pandemic is going to find us. And we are still being bit by that pandemic, and that will be for a while. But the good news is we're stabilizing, and we want to take off and forward. So as Jim mentioned, alignment is a key piece, and our staff works a lot with alignment at the elementary. Aligning, again, if you think back to last year when I came in at math time with a giant notebook and said, guess how many years of standards the state has created for our students? It's 22 years of standards. We don't have them for 22 years. But we can go through our standards and say, hey, here's our priority standards. 50% of them at every grade level are priority standard. Then which standards are going to be our developing? Those are going to be those ones that come up every year, and eventually you're going to hit a priority and hit a mastery, usually within 1 to 2 years of being a developing standard. And after that, we kind of have the standards that I call the red lights or the green light standards. Hey, just keep going, keep introducing, and eventually that's going to roll into a developing standard, and we get to all of them. So it's key that we look at those assessment or the standards, and then we look at our assessments. How is our system doing? And so I'm just providing that information to you. The biggie that we were challenged to look at tonight is our participation rate. The state requires, as does Fed, requires that every school district hit 95% participation rate. In the state of Oregon, we have opt-out availability. It's a right, it's a law, it's just what we do. I've already got on our website information about state testing, opt-out information will be coming shortly. I'm anticipating. And then we'll get that out there as well. So that does influence a little bit about what happens in the in my report, basically, I gave you the averages. But on this chart that Caleb creatively designed for us, you can see the actual breakdown. So the third grade level in ELA, 97% of the students participated. Fourth grade, 94% participated, and fifth grade, 93.9% participated. Dropping down into math, again, you can see third grade, 93.7%. Fourth grade, 92.8%, fifth grade, 93.9%, and in fifth grade science, we were at 95.5% that participated in those assessments. The staff does take a look at them. It is probably the hardest thing in my building from about March to June. Because every staff member, every day when they go in and they administer the test, they get to see how their students are doing and they look at their scores that they get in the end. And you hear a lot of comments, wow, I didn't do that right. And sometimes I have to remind them, stop beating yourself up. You've done a great job. You prepared them to the best of your ability. Some things are out of our control, especially if we get a young student who decides how fast can I put through this test, which does happen, unfortunately. So we will continue working on our standards and our standards alignment. Any questions about that?
Was any of this a surprise to you? I mean, you mentioned the pandemic more so recovering down, but did it come back? Was there anything that stood out, I guess?
Yeah, there were a couple areas that stood out. I mean, we were surprised by one group that we had in our building, but then when we all stopped and said, okay, let's start reflecting. And it was our fifth graders. Let's do a lot of reflecting. Those kids had never done state testing at third grade. And there's a lot of preparation that goes into state testing. And you get better and you get more and more practice at it. So our fifth graders didn't start state testing until they were fourth grade. So it was their first time. So in essence, when they took it in fifth grade, it was their second time ever to test. Okay, so that was one of the biggies that we saw. The types of test items that you see also, and I can't talk about them because I'm a test administrator. I administered one test this morning. I didn't help a screener on a new student today. But you know, it's just preparing the students. And our staff works really hard with using the practice test. We talk about use the practice test, which you folks can go out and view to or take. As a teaching tool. It's not a secret. You can use that as a teaching tool. And so the staff, when we look at things and we're designing assessments and problem sets in our classrooms, we're trying to mimic a little bit to give our kids the experience that they're going to see. It's not just short answer. It might be writing a 5-page paragraph. Or not 5-page, but 5 paragraphs. We'll cut down and not pages. So there's all kinds of things out there. And I'm never amazed at this. I never stop being amazed at our community. We challenged our students in our community to raise $30,000 for the school this year in Ragathon. We raised $43,257 this year in Jagathon money, and all of those funds are going right back to support students in the way of field trips. We're adding enrichment opportunities, guest speakers, swimming lessons, and assemblies this year for our students. And that's the first time we brought assemblies back that will be paid for by our parents. And it's been about 10 years since we've done that. So we're excited to have that. And I also want to give a great big shout out to Madeline Carlton for all of her work, orchestrating and putting together the Jagathon. I mean, who better at 7 a.m. in the morning to meet you and go, we got a problem, it's raining. Let's start problem solving, what can we do, and coming up with a great solution. Also to Mr. Strong for becoming the first human Sunday, he was a really good sport about it, and the top 20 students who raised the most money were the lucky ones who got to put ice cream on him, sauce him, spray whipped cream on him, throw sprinkles at him, you name it, and he just sat there taking it with a great big smile. So shout out to him. We had a very successful book fair right here in this room. Thank you for putting up with the book fair around us. The last time we had a board meeting, that book fair generated $12,000 to $13,000 in profit. And Scholastic returns profit money to our PTO in the form of Scholastic dollars. And then we turn around, the PTO does, and buys books for the book vending machine for our OBOB program as well, that our students 3rd through 5th grade participate in. And again, I want to shout out to my wonderful staff. They had 100% participation in parent conferences. We stretch it out. So we don't only do the 2 days, but we do all week, becomes parent conference week. And so one of the things that we've talked about a lot is removing barriers in the building. And a lot of the barriers we found is working schedules. And so the staff graciously gave up their evening times. And I can tell you that they did because I was here with them. Tuesday through Friday night, I was here as late as 7:30, 8 o'clock. So that they could meet with families, and we had some families that were coming in for conferences as early as 6:45, 7 a.m. And told the staff, just let me know, and we'll have the doors open and welcome anyone who wants to be here. So we were very pleased with our turnout. Nathan Bofto started a new program for us called Family PE Nights. He held 2 the last week of October, and he had about 50 parents show up, and a lot of kids in the gym each night. We did a K2 night, and then the following night we did a 3rd through 5th grade night. Parents got to watch their students do some activities, and then they too were invited to participate in activities. It was a great night, as well as right here in the community center, our FRC coordinator, Phoebe Cooksey, and thank you, Rusty, for also volunteering your time that night. Hosted our pumpkin party, first time back out doing something like that since COVID. So it was really nice to see families here having a good time and getting to participate in some fun activities around pumpkins. We also have a bunch of volunteers in our building who have stepped up and are doing enrichment activities. Jessica Wolpe and Erin Holiday are hosting a running club every Thursday morning for any interested students in grades 3 through 5. They meet out on the track. And thank you, Caleb, for helping me get lights on last week. Because it was a little dark as they were trying to run out there. And their goal is to train for the Eugene Marathon to run in the spring. Ryan Strong, our music teacher, has started in the xylophone crew. Our PTO generously is buying him xylophones with Chagathon funds that were raised this year. And they will be performing at the December winter concert. Nicholas Shadden is coordinating our OBOB program once again this year. We have approximately 45 students participating in that program. They put together their own teams. They'll be reading 16 different books. They will compete against each other. We'll have a school battle, and the team that rises from the school battle moves on to regional, and we'll see how far we go in regional play. And also, Joan Lankey's back this year, and we're eternally grateful for her. And she is doing Destination Imagination right here in this room every Wednesday with K-5 students. And she sent me a lovely email the other day and said, I have a problem. I said, okay, what's the problem? I got too many kids. And I was like, that's not a problem, Joan, that's a good thing to have. So she's working to do that. November 9th is grading day, and PLCs are really important. And I'm going to speak a little bit about that because you never know what's going to come out of the PLC meeting. And especially at the elementary level. And I don't get to go to all of the PLC meetings, but we take PLC notes. And I have some questions and a template that the staff and I worked on over the years. But what I heard resoundingly is, Deborah, have you seen our new report card? And I was like, I have. And we're calling it vanilla because it's very vanilla. It says things on it like reading for informational text. Reading for information, reading for fiction, all kinds of little headers, but there's no descriptors, which really bothered the staff because they're like, we're gonna get one score for writing, and how are parents gonna feel about that one score and what meaning does it have? So we got together as a staff and decided it was time to come up with the Pleasant Hill Elementary report card addendum. So every grade level has worked together to put together descriptors for every header that's going to be on that report card. And then on the back side, we've also put the academic standards that we'll be using. We'll be using a rating scale 1 to 4 and what meaning that has. So we're hoping this will help parents as well with the upcoming report card. And again, the time that the staff spent was on the PLC time coming up with this, and then said, hey, let's move it to before a staff meeting. Let's have a big discussion. So we've spent a lot of time doing that. We're always welcome to drop in anytime you want. We'd love to have you go. Questions for me?
Very much, very useful information, appreciate it. Eight point two, middle school. Good evening, Caleb.
Hello. So first and foremost, our middle school month awards for September are as follows. Student of the month, Stella Carlton, Caroline Carlson, T and Cyber. Most improved student of the month, Kyle Dean, Gabe Meehee, and Jackson Farnsworth. Citizen of the month, June Johnson, Lila Wilson, and Michelle Mendez. Huge shout out to Miss Roddy, Miss Huff, Miss Pritikin, Miss Mott, Miss Hill, Miss Party, and the about 20 high school students, parents, volunteers, and the local education organizations who helped put on outdoor school for our 6th graders at the beginning of October. Particular special recognition to Miss Roddy for taking it on as the director, and our staff, the high school counselors, and all the parent volunteers helped put outdoor school into action and made it possible. Big thanks to Ms. Huff, Mrs. Cool, and Ms. Castle for the continued efforts and the weekly delivery of our middle school SEL curriculum, Character Strong. Just a couple weeks ago, the 7th graders took their annual field trip to Maud Kearns Art Center. Last week, we took the middle schoolers on a fun community trip to Patterson Track City. The money from our annual fundraiser run funds to pay for students to choose golf, bowling, and laser tag. This is a great chance for our school to go off campus, continue building our sense of community. For our conferences, we had a 45% participation rate. We want to see that increase. One of the ways that we're particularly trying to see that increase is working with teachers to make specific contact with families to invite them to conferences. So beyond just opening it up to families to invest, but us to make that personal contact with families to invite them to attend conferences. To date, we've had 37 postcards and students and families. This is something that Ms. Hill has coordinated with our staff to be able to actually send a handwritten positive note to families. So we're working to try to, our goal is to get with every kid here. But to date, we have 37 kids sent down. Middle school girls basketball just had their first game on the 1st. We currently have 19 students participating, 13 in the 7th grade and 6 in the 8th grade. For OSAS, yeah, you have tables for our participation rates as well as our proficiency rates for English language arts and then for math. Just something to note in math, so you can see at the bottom, I made a little note here when I first submitted this report. We were unsure why the state report shows less than 5% proficient. Thanks to Jim for getting the answer. So the reason there's dashes for each of the levels as well as the participation rate is because our proficiency rate was less than 5%. The less than 5% earned at least a 3 or a 4. Because that proficiency rate was below 5%, they also suppressed the participation rate. function of how ODE reports it. So that is why you see the dashes in the graph. Not sub-science here, regional and tests in the 8th grade middle school. Next, we go to our grades. So this is the breakdown of percentage of students with a D or F. So it's combined by core content level. So this is the number, this is the percentage of the students in that grade with a D or an F in that core content class. So you can see that breakdown by grade level. Moving on to DIBELS, oral reading fluency. So again, you're looking at the number of words correct and the percentage of the students in that grade that scored in the corresponding range. So you have that for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Moving on to attendance. So of our 210 middle school students, we have 197 that are regularly attending school. So when you look at Oregon's definition of a regular attendance as 8 unexcused 1/2 day absences in a board period in which the school is in session. So 93% of our students are missing 3 or fewer days of school in the last 4 weeks. We currently have 12 students in middle school that are receiving support via teachers, office staff, our student support advocate, counselors, administration to problem solve barriers to regular attendance. Looking forward, tomorrow, 8th graders are going on their annual salmon watch field trip. This Wednesday, our middle school choir will be attending a choral festival that students get to learn from local choir professionals. The students will get to experience being on Western Oregon University's college campus and listen to some of the best choirs in the state, listen to the most high school age groups from North Oregon. We're going to be one of 2 middle school choirs who will be performing at the festival. And this is our first ever classical choral festival that our 7th and 8th graders will be performing at. So shout out to Mr. Ludwig for that. Coming up on November 21st, we'll have our first quarter awards assembly. Great opportunity for middle school students having an assembly, celebrating both student achievement as well as having an opportunity to beat various community building games, minute-to-minute type games with one another. Big thanks to Ms. Mott and Ms. Olson, school student council, assembly together. Excited to have that come soon. Questions?
This is great. Thank you for the digital scores. That was new, right? We hadn't been doing that for middle school. How did the staff and students respond to being asked?
They were willing. I think the big question is like, now what? Right, so they can actually conduct it. I mean, when you're looking at a 1-minute time test, I think having 4 teachers to be able to deliver that to their kids, they like hear their own students read, where is that scheduling? But then what? So yeah, it wasn't huge. I don't want to speak about, oh, it wasn't a huge imposition. I don't have to proctor it, but even as it were, the amount of time was pretty limited, but now they're all eager. We actually had a meeting today about, okay, now what do we do with that data? How are we going to target students and provide that support? So I think people are pretty excited for the most part.
So these test scores were from tests or tests given on what dates?
Which test are you referring to?
When I look at the state testing scores,
Yep.
and it says state testing 2022-23.
Yep.
So the English language, math, science, they were all given at different dates, I imagine. But was that this year in 23, or is this data for 22?
This is last year's state test.
Last year's. Okay. So then you can kind of, I'm just trying to look to see if there's if you could look down by cohort then to the D's and F's you have here. So yeah, if you looked at 7th graders and said, you know, they were performing well or not well in, you know, language arts or math, you know, have 7th grade science. And then roll those ahead and say, okay, those are 8th graders this year and they're in math. And so, like if we look at 7th graders in math in the levels 1 and 2, you've got 80% of your 7th graders in math are at levels 1 and 2. And then if we look at math for eighth graders and say B's and F's, 26% of the eighth graders have D's and F's in math. And so there's kind of a correlation that looks like they are doing fairly poorly this year compared to the last. I was just wondering if the test caught them before they had, learned certain things in math that were then caused a lower score in the assessment test. And then, if you look at the correlation of all there, or if you've had time to do that with any of the numbers. Or if you think you can benefit from any of that, that's the looking at the cohort and saying, hey, what, these kids need some more help in math or science or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, of course, are we able to do that?
We are very new and inexperienced in all of that goes together to be able to make informed decisions. And so I think part of it is, we're getting at it, as part of this around the New Oregon data set that I've been talking about. So I bring up a report, for instance, which is our at-risk and it's an early intervention system. And so we can go and design this so that we can weight and give a student, say, 2 points for if they're at risk for attendance, 2 points for test scores, 2 points for grades, and then after that, then we can get an overall risk for a student, so we can see which students perhaps are at a higher risk than others, and be able to intervene with those. But the data from our test scores are one of those things. The PLC model that we're getting at is getting deeper into what you're talking about, John, is looking at a particular assessment and a grade that we might give. So a student or a teacher gives a formative assessment on a particular topic that is meant to address a particular standard, and then can do a statistical analysis on those results and find out what students may need to be retaught, and what that reteaching might look like. And the data from this data assessment is also one of those pieces that we can get at the end of the year and find out how do our students do, or what students do we have coming in, how well are they doing coming into the. What we are not doing yet, at least at the secondary level, is breaking down that data by target area or strand or content standard to be able to see. Last year, 7th graders that are now 8th graders are low in a particular area, or maybe they're actually gaining on the state in another area. So we're doing well in this particular strand of teaching towards a content area, and we need to beef up a different area and we're going to do that. And that's some of the work. So we started last year with our secondary teachers. We're doing our scope with their classes, just getting them to, what are your standards, give us a summary of what it is you're teaching. Next steps are just to work with them specifically on what are the standards, have you aligned those standards and thought about what the sequence looks like where you're going to teach those standards throughout the year. The POC model plays into that, developing informative assessments so teachers can actually assess how students are doing in real time, making adjustments, reteaching if the student doesn't learn it or a group of students don't learn it. All of this, the data pieces stuff.
Yeah, I was just, are any of these assessments going to show growth? Are the tests given in such a way that there's an opportunity to show growth at all? Or is it snapshot this year, and the curriculum, how the curriculum's aligning with the test? This is the curriculum doesn't align with the test, it may look like the students are doing poorly when they're really doing better. And not necessarily you have to teach the test, but it sounds like more and more we do.
There is, and it's when you get into the suppressed data and data reporting that our administrators can look at, they can actually see, again, by strand or target area, how we're doing in relation, say, for the state average. So we're behind them, and there's essentially 3 marks that they give. There's just a dash. There's 2 dashes if we are actually starting to make some improvement in an area, or there's a flush that says, yes, we're making improvement, or we're doing well in that particular area. But it won't show up on the at a glance because it's drilling down even further towards the student level, and because of it's protected and suppressed. Yeah. So we've got, I met with the state today and their assessment coordinators, they'll be in playing EST on November 16th, so we'll have taking the team to start to do keep an eye on that data.
Thank you.
Thanks, Caleb. 8.3 high school report. Evening, Darth.
Hey, good evening. Let me first start with our students in month. So for 9th grade, Brennan Granzow. 10th grade, Colby Hampton. 11th, Elliot Epperson, and as I said before, Zoe Brock for the 12th grade. And our most improved for the 9th grade is Bo Wilkinson. 10th, Will Brock. 11th, Aaron McAllister, and 12th, again, Chloe Meyer. Currently, we have 330 students enrolled at the high school. I kind of started to take a look in terms of kind of what you're talking about, John. Looking at the data in a couple of different ways. And one of the things that we have been running into is some of that data is not as clean as we like. Certainly as we begin to build out those systems and we get Oregon Data Suite, we'll be able to play around a lot more as opposed to spending all this time just trying to get track the data down to actually be able to start breaking it down in different ways. But anyway, so I kind of took a look at the high school as a whole. We're at 330. We were at 316 last year. And then to take a look at the class level, so our 8th graders last year grew by 3. Our 9th graders have shrunk by 1. Our 10th graders last year are up by 1, and our 11th graders are up by 3. So if you take the classes as they move through, we've seen an increase of 6. Regular attenders. You can see there, 9th grade 73.33, 10th grade 72.72, 11th grade 62.5%, and 12th grade 65.12%. So that puts us at 68.4%. Some of the work that we've been digging into in terms of attendance is starting to come to fruition. In that we are beginning to have mediation meetings with families, just more than anything to sit down with the family, with the student, with the administrator and talk through what are the barriers that we're seeing in terms of the science of all that. There's a pretty clear parallel between those conversations, those relationships, and trying to figure out as a team where those barriers are to move forward in growth. So I look forward to seeing this number go up as the year progresses, as we're making those connections. I gave you kind of a snapshot of the D's and F's. This is kind of the top layer of what care teams would be digging into in terms of overall the kind of patterns that we're seeing. But we would dig quite a bit deeper in terms of specific classes and particular students to identify some of those things that we could be working on as a group to help support individual students. So we've got and whenever this was the 30th, 9th graders had 19 D's and 20 F's. 10th grade had 16 D's and 22 F's, and 11th grade had 15 D's and 29 F's. And 12th grade had 9 D's and 16 F's. So we're continuing to try to work through with those students and provide some additional supports. One of the things that we're doing, and I'm going to jump ahead just for a second, Strive for 5. So really having the staff identify 5 students that they have some sort of connection with that may be struggling, that they can reach out. And it doesn't have to be a formalized process, but just kind of constant communication with that student and check-ins. Hey, how's it going? And how can I help support? So hopefully that will also help. It spreads pretty quick when you're talking about, you know, when we have 50 staff members and you've got 55 students, kind of with them keeping an eye on those kids, you can see how quickly you reach a lot of those students that may be struggling to at least have some positive connection, and getting them some support. So, we had 31 of our juniors and sophomores participated in the PSAP, earlier this month, last month. We had an incredible career fair, thanks to Kathy Duvall. We had 43 different vendors, in which all 7th through 12th grade students had the opportunity to work their way through. They filled both the gymnasiums, so that was a pretty cool opportunity for them to see all those. We had a successful round of family conferences. We had 517 conferences that were attended at the high school on the 19th and 20th. And to kind of jump into, you all have this in your packet. To kind of take a look at Oregon at a glance. As you can see, we had a slight increase of size from 19 to 21 last year. Regular attenders, a slight decrease. But as we were working and we continue to work to clean up attendance data, that's not all that surprising. That we saw a small dip. And hopefully as we begin to put in these structures and supports to improve attendance, we'll see that come back up. On track to graduate, remain the same as the year before and represents about 4 students. We did not complete a quarter of the graduation credits by the end of the school year. We are still well above state average. However, we're hoping that the work that we're putting into future success specifically, with regular teaching and practicing study skills, weekly planner and grade checks, and additional guided study time helps to really get those kids in the right place moving forward and some good momentum moving out of 9th grade. On-time graduation and 5-year completion remains the same as the previous years. Utilization of care teams and SSTs to determine better supports for struggling students should help to improve this number on both sides moving forward. Our college going, I was disappointed to see this. The 43% represents 31 students that are enrolled in a 2 or 4-year college. As you can see, that's down by 8%. We're working hard to make improvements to our counseling program. We're really starting to build that up as we speak. And we already have over 20 students taking advantage of early applications, either through Common App or directly through the college itself as of the 3rd. So that's positive moving forward. Tribute to veterans, I would invite you out November 8th, 2:15 to 3:10. And coming up, we have senior parent night, also on the 8th, staff training on the 9th, breakfast on the hill, our student center on the 9th, and then fire drill, Thanksgiving break, first quarter recognition. It's crazy, it's November. Any questions?
I have 2 questions about your attendance. Is that kids missing whole days or?
No, it's by period, it's broken down by period, so our percentages are pretty precise in terms of, if we don't just blanket a day, we're looking at the percentage that they're actually in school throughout the day.
Right.
By period.
Do you feel these numbers are pretty accurate?
I do, unfortunately, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we've got a lot of work to do, but I would say that they're pretty accurate.
You know, if I see on the college going, we just did these Assuming that number's coming down. For two reasons, the trade being so depleted and kids being encouraged to go straight into trades rather than college. And the expense of college, I would just assume that fewer kids are going to college, is that true?
I think you're right in terms of, a lot more kids are taking advantage of two-year schools, but that would also be included in this number.
That's not just a four-year college.
It could be a 2 or 4 year college, that they're participating in. So, no, I think that we've got some positive shifts. If you look at, you know, the difference between a 4-year and a 2-year, we've got a tremendous number of kids. They're taking advantage of 2-year colleges to get into the trades, which is wonderful.
For one thing, there was kids who are graduating in the 2021 school year, so we still have COVID. You know, a lot of colleges were still messed up as well. I think there was some in-person learning still not happening at that time, so I think that might have discouraged some kids from going to school.
Well, and it's like LCC, you know, even after that, and I think they're still offering a good portion of their lessons online. So I mean, it's a different learning environment for sure.
I'm curious for all of you, actually, and maybe this isn't a fair question, but. You know, at one level, I'm shocked with the data. It's a little depressing because it doesn't. It's not super. If this were a business, we wouldn't be very happy at the end of the year report to the stockholders. I guess that's where I'm thinking about it. But I think part of that's context, is I don't know that I understand, relatively speaking, how these numbers are stacking up. So my question is, at that sort of gut level, how does this feel? Your just gut reaction, like, does this suck? Or is like, no, we're on the right path. How would you answer?
Okay. It's terrible.
Okay.
When I look at the OSAS data, it's terrible. That's why I go back and I look at my Dibbles data and I look at my Acadians data. And we look at that, you know, Dibbles is every 3 weeks, we're looking at Dibbles.
Yeah.
I have giant spreadsheets that I create. I sat in my family room last night creating a spreadsheet because the data warehouse isn't up and doing what I need it to do for the staff over here. We have to have those little celebrations because we put all of our eggs in the basket on the added lands. I think you'd see mass exodus of teachers going, even faster than what we're seeing in the state of Oregon, unfortunately, right now. You know, we can tweak things faster with Dibbles and Acadians data. We are adding, because the state is adding back in local performance data. So we've already started having that conversation in our building. What is work samples going to look like? What does it feel like? How far can I integrate? I mean, one of my teachers the other day stood up at a meeting and said, I got an idea. And I was like, great, let's go. And she goes, how about 5 areas in one work sample? And I was like, let's just put that one in the garbage. We're going to pretend we didn't say that. No more than 2 guys. And so we talked about maybe things. But yeah, no, we have to find the golden nugget somewhere.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah.
And remember the at a glance data proficiency is based on a student getting a 3 or a 4. When you talk to the state will always do their precursor meeting that will go through the data and anomalies to the data before it gets released. So they'll talk about the 2 actually being a developing score as well. But it's not included, it's just not what we set our benchmarks for. I think for the daily practitioners of the work within a school, our schools are often a reflection of our society, and especially the work that Steve does as well. We often find ourselves at the doorstep of all the legislation and policy trying to solve all of our society problems. And so each year it's like another piece, another added on year. So if you really sit back and look at the complexity of the work that a teacher does, and the school building administrator does, it's extremely complex work. And in fact, you bring all these kids in, take them through a school day, we're trying to look at standards and improve our processes. So it's a pretty large feat. So we have to maintain some positivity.
Yeah, no, that's helpful, the context. If you're outside of this stuff, it's hard to know. I mean, that's a perspective that's helpful to hear. I mean, when I look at this, I think, well, everybody should be proficient. Not half the kids. And that's not realistic, I know. So where do you find that place where you say, yeah, it isn't, you got 55 or 60% of the kids or whatever, and that's great, that's a celebration.
Yeah.
But it's hard to look at this stuff and not have that context to know whether we're ahead of the game or not.
Going through like the middle and high school, you've got a decent portion of our kids that are really well connected and they're having great conversations with an organization or government agency or a business and that they're interested in. And you have a number of our kids that are just aimlessly, I mean, there's no connection for them. So now you take a standardized test with a long reading passage and a multiple choice as a 10-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old, and there's little to no connection. There's no joy necessarily in that style of reading.
9 times out of 10, it's a topic that they don't care about. They don't get to pick the topics.
Going back to attendance. So you were saying that the reporting we're seeing here for the high school in terms of regular attenders is a percentage of classes attended, not necessarily a percentage of how many kids or a percentage of kids attending a whole day.
Correct.
Is that how elementary is reporting as well? With elementary reporting,
All day.
so that may be explaining why at elementary level we're seeing attendance in the 90s, and then we get to high school and it's in the 70s. Is that why there's a disparity there potentially?
Yeah, and
Because we're all this percentage here is including kids that just may have missed a class.
there is, and it's age of kids as well. They're high school students. It gets much easier to leave a middle or high school student home, or maybe not know that they
Didn't go.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can even see as they get older, the attendance usually will drop even less. We've done a lot of work this year in making sure that our students have full schedules. Obviously, when you get to your seniors, though they don't necessarily need a full schedule, and might be doing that job every day. But, yeah.
And then my other question, without obviously giving identifying information away, what are we seeing in general as the primary barriers to attendance? What's that we can have any influence on, I guess? What's the biggest barriers we're seeing, and we're encountering just some examples that are leading to these numbers.
So I talked about a little bit of that in my report.
Okay.
On that. The biggest attendance throughout the entire state is probably the one area where we're focusing the entire state.
Right, I noticed
As far as
that.
getting kids back into school. We have had through the pandemic, either not reporting to work, or in some cases now we have jobs that still have not reported to work. I think concerns about when you don't feel good, what is it as far as the health that's going on. So we've kind of gone through this process of a change to where it's safer and easier to stay at home. You're perhaps not feeling well, or somebody is at home to be with the child. And we just had an opportunity back to school as regularly as we did before. I would say this as a building principal. In the past, I would have to often call to say, no, they cannot be here.
Right, right, you need to come again.
They are sick, they are in the health room, we're not sending them back to class. You know, we're not giving them that if the student is not feeling well, oftentimes she's going to school.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have a perspective you want to share?
I'm just thinking that, yeah, you know, we're really making a focus on getting kids exposure to a variety of different career paths and opportunities, you know, across the board. And I think that that's kind of a slow build too, in terms of, we talked about the career fair. Some students being engaged, some students not engaged, but when you talk about a system that begins to value that, if I think about the time that I've spent really helping students that are on kind of an alternative path that really struggle to find purpose in the work that they're doing. It has to do with being able to see life beyond high school. And so I think that the work is beginning in terms of some of those other things for engagement earlier on. And I really look forward to the opportunity to see our ninth graders coming in after having exposure for a couple of years in terms of different career opportunities and CTE offerings to get to the ninth grade and be able to really dig in. Like, okay, so here's my strengths, here's my weaknesses. These are kind of pathways that are available to me, and kind of exploring what that looks like so they can begin to articulate a path. And they can start to come to school every day with purpose behind, like it's more than just a math class. It's beyond that. And I can find something that I'm truly passionate about. And I can connect everything to what I'm learning. Because I think that a lot of times that people get disenfranchised if they don't see a meaning to the work that they're doing. So I think we have, you know, a long way to go in terms of making everything that we are learning and having the students learn, you know, relatable to the real world. I think that's the shift that we're continuing to see with the state and the shift that we're going to continue to work on with teaching staff.
Give you a specific example. If a student, for instance, wants to go into the electrical trade, and they sign up through the unionized portion of that, they get a certain amount of points for a number of different factors. One of those factors is they have to take an algebra test. So making those connections for kids that algebra is important. If you're leaning towards this particular career or doing college. And so then as they earn these points, then they list they on the list, so being grabbed up for work and getting a licensure from that. So those connections, making those connections for them.
Well, I'm very curious some of the misunderstandings in terms of kids can be pretty quick. They're going in a trade direction to say, you know, I don't want to go to college, I'm getting into the trades. Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, you're still, you know, looking probably at a 2-year university or, you know, community college to get some of those skills, the credentials in order to make a living doing that.
So what is, like, obviously 100% is what we want to strive for, not necessarily realistic. So where do we feel like if we get to what's ideal in terms of regular attenders? What are we hoping to shoot for here? Is 90s, 80s, like what's realistic? Just like Rusty was saying, context.
Yeah, so it's a
Trace in the midnight, yes.
But they're measuring it different, so it's harder to compare. 'Cause my understanding again is elementary. That's we're only tracking for that reporting number. We're only tracking if the kid missed an entire day. What we're seeing here
Well, I should back up. We're doing AM, that makes sense every day, so you can have a 0.5 in there.
It is
It is different.
that is a philosophical discussion, I think, as far as what we as educators may want for a system, or what the state of Oregon may want for a system, and what an individual parent may want for themselves and their family or their child through the system. So it's, you know, it's really difficult. I think we continue to shoot to have 95%. You think about 95% of the 176 days, what does that mean, like per month? For a student coming to school, is that like 1 to 2 days per month? When you've got 5 days in a week or 4 days, we got urban releases, we got November, not very many days, December, not very many days. So if you think about it, even I think in terms of a employer, what would you expect from your employees in order to be able to run the business and be competitive in whatever the business might be? And the 95% is a really good number to strive for. So it's a partnership between us and our families.
That part makes sense to me. You feel that, gives, and speaking of the partnership with the families, how do we feel like that is in our community right now? Because, you know, just in general, at times during the pandemic, the relationship was not great, for one reason or another, like it may have been prior to the pandemic. Or how do we feel what the relationship is? Just in general.
I feel in general, being in year 2, that it is good. I think we have to. I also come at it from a perspective of as humans, we tend to focus on sometimes the negative things in a situation, even though they may be pretty small. I really think that's kind of this sense of we're always kind of aware of what may be there to kind of to get us. And so those are the things we kind of focus on, and it becomes for some reason harder to focus on the things that are actually positive. That are going on. We tend to try and drag systems down, drag people down. We're still focusing on the positive, but I think coming in, so somewhat of an outsider in year 2, I feel like the relationships are positive, and you see the different activities that are going on. The engagement that we have at a football game or a state volleyball game, where we're taking cheerleaders buses of students, nearly 80 students to go and participate and watching those volleyball play.
And that's over the weekend, right? That's not kids going to do that to get out of class.
That was Friday. Friday was the big day, yeah, and then we had another place on Saturday as well. Okay. You know, the amount of engagement that Mrs. White does with the FFA, or Jazz Festival, and choir, there's a tremendous amount of activities. We see the parking lot tonight, and yeah, they're not coming to our board meeting, but they're here participating in an activity that are as part of our school community.
Well, I guess I was looking more along the lines of when we go to engage and problem solve and partner with parents, with caregivers, when there is a struggle with attendance, are we feeling like it's actually making headway, or are they responding to our attempts to remove barriers to affect better attendance? Do we feel like we're attempting to partner? Is that being reciprocated?
I would say absolutely.
Okay.
Those conversations are, I think, a true sign of whether that connection is being made, and if we're making progress. It's the vulnerability in some of those meetings, and family issues and everything else that we're just scared to figure out. We understand there's a problem. We're concerned about the kid, because if they're not in school, they're not learning. And I feel, yeah, I mean, in terms of the meetings that I've been a part of, and the meetings that I've kind of watched for the periphery, then my admin, parents, I think it's where the work starts, it's where, yeah, it's great. And we're able to connect with families that we normally wouldn't. So it brings reasoning to coming together and trying to figure that out and problem solve, and we get to know each other better. So,
Right.
I would say, heck, yeah.
I don't wanna seem like we're being this one particular thing into the ground, but all this other stuff we're talking about doing doesn't matter as much if we don't have kids in the building. So,
The attendance is. Other than just talked about things that we're putting on. Yeah, so.
all right. Well, thank you for indulging my questions.
Yeah.
That does, I jumped the gun a little bit for Jim, but that does bring us to 9.0 superintendent communication, 9.1 district at a glance report.
So you've got to hear about all of the different areas so far, so. The exhibit 23-24.55 is what I'm really focused on. The first part of that is really around kind of statewide summary. So basically, as we continue to work our way out of the pandemic, our school and district profiles reflect a lot of signs of progress throughout the state, with more students on track to graduate, and signals further work to do to increase student attendance. Statewide, the 9th grade on track rates rose last year by 0.8%, and it's approaching pre-pandemic levels. The rate of students going to college within 16 months of graduation declined nearly a 4 percentage point, from 6.4% for the graduates for the class of 2020 to 5.6% for the class of 2021. The declines are similar to overall declines in college enrollment seen in Oregon and nationwide, and reflect data from when the global pandemic was at its peak. The decline is much smaller than the 5.4 percentage point drop reported last year. State continue to see a decline in regular attendance in 22-23, with the rate falling 2 more percentage points from 21-22, and the rate of regular attendance remains significantly below pre-pandemic levels. As far as our school district assessments, so district data reflects that of the state. 9th grade on track is already above 95% compared to, already above 95% compared to the state average of 84. Our on-time graduation rate of 88% is above the state average of 81%, and the 5-year completion rate increased 2% by 292%, which is above the state average of 87%. Much like the state, regular attender rate decreased by 7% and matched the state average of 62. The Oregon Department of Education considers regular attenders if they attend more than 90% of the school days in the year. Reasons for the continued drop in attendance rates are still speculative. And while we cannot point to anything with a concrete in the systems, one thought is that families following the pandemic now have the ability to keep kids home and are doing so more regularly, especially if they're experiencing even mild illness. Latest profiles show a continued decline in student comprehension in core subjects. This can partly be explained due to our low participation rates, especially at the secondary level. In addition, it appears that we must do a better job of making sure that tests are started and completed by students who do not opt out. As a reminder, the Oregon parents may freely opt their student out by taking the assessments. The next page gives you our internal opt-out information. So these are the parents who formally will complete the opt-out form. If you can see then, and what I did is by grade level, 3 through 8 and grade 11. Next column over is those students. And what we did is took a snapshot of January 2023. And then ELA in math and science. There's a number of students that opted out by subject area or test by grade level, and then the corresponding percentage next to that. You can see, I think standard as far as opt-outs for the grade levels until you get to grade 11, which we see a strong increase in opt-outs. Overall, patience is the key as we continue to build our systems and support specific to attendance, social and emotional learning, engaging programs and studying, staff development, and communicate accountability for our students.
Any additional questions, comments? All right, thank you, Jim. 10.0 board communication, 10.1 committee or community news or announcements.
Thursday morning, we were all invited to the Education Foundation breakfast at the high school, 7:30. Student center, I think.
I should be able to attend that.
We're coming up to the supposed to be a conference.
Doesn't that start Friday? I mean, I'm going up Thursday evening.
The two come together, sorry. I'll be at the pre-conference. So
Yeah. Yeah, I was coming up after work on Thursday. Yeah, I saw that was superintendent, so I didn't participate. Doing anything until Friday morning. All right, not sure. What was here?
Yeah.
I figured since board communication,
If we get time to share that.
I haven't even looked at it yet.
It's positive.
That's why I'm still. Otherwise, we disseminate this. This is a thank you card from the FFA, Pleasantville FFA. Looks like it's signed by a bunch of the student members. Dear Pleasantville School District School Board, thank you for allowing us to go to the FFA middle school trip. It's signed by a bunch of students. If anybody wants to take a look at that. Looking forward to hearing something about the trip to Indianapolis. That's where they went, right? I have it right. All right, 11.0 other business. School. Legit Halloween island. Okay. Any other business? Okay. Our next meeting is a work session next Thursday at 5:30. And then that's the 16th. The next school board meeting is in December. It's on my head right now. The date, 4th. Okay. So December 4th at 7. It's the next regularly scheduled school board meeting work session for the school board. It's November 16th at 5:30 here, so. All right,